Stop trying to make yourself feel better. When we feel down or depressed or we're angry about something or even stressed, what we end up doing is we end up doing things that are going to make us feel better. It could be eating like junk food, it could be watching something that makes us laugh or feel better. It could even be as simple as like having a bath or a shower or doing something refreshing. Most of these things that we do to try and make ourselves feel better is actually damaging our emotional state, it's damaging our mental health. And the reason is because these activities, what they do is they emotionally suppress us. When you emotionally suppress, what you're doing is that you're feeling a certain way and you're essentially pushing those feelings down, and in this case when we're trying to make ourselves feel better, we're trying to replace those uncomfortable feelings with more comfortable feelings, ones that make us feel better. And the issue with suppressing our emotions is that these emotions aren't then dealt with. They're inside you and they linger and they're going to sit there until they're being dealt with. And when they're not dealt with, all sorts of things can happen. You can end up feeling depressed, you can have angry outbursts, you can have no motivation, no energy. You can get all sorts of stuff like light sensitivity, physical symptoms like gas, bloating, aches and pains, cramps, all sorts of stuff. So when you're trying to improve your mental health, you want to try and avoid as much emotional suppression as possible, because when we're not emotionally suppressing, what are we doing? One, we're more here in reality, which I think is very important, but secondly is the fact that when we are with ourselves and we're feeling what we are supposed to be feeling, what we're not trying to cover up, we end up in giving ourselves the chance to actually process these emotions. And when you process these emotions, your mental health always improves. You'll always get less and lack of those symptoms that I've just mentioned, and your mental health improves. So what are some things you can do that doesn't encourage emotional suppression? So the things that I believe, although it's quite hard to say, is I believe having walks in nature. And there's a few reasons for this. Some of the reasons are, one, because it's quiet, and when it's quiet and there's not as many distractions, what happens is normally you might get like lost in thought, and when you get lost in thought, you start to potentially think of things that have been emotionally bothering you. So it could be something that just happened at work, it could be stuff years ago, it could be like childhood trauma, it could be anything, but you're giving yourself the opportunity to think about that stuff, and then those emotions are going to come up, and then you're going to want to feel those emotions. So let's say, I don't know, you're walking in nature and then you think about how when you was younger, your mum like pushed you and, I don't know, started slapping you or something. When you have that thought, what's going to happen is there's a good chance at least, you're then going to start to feel anxious or heightened or angry. You'll start feeling something. If you don't feel anything, which there's also a good chance that will happen, just start thinking about, quite literally start analysing, thinking, okay, like, how did I feel in this moment? Or if you can't answer that question, how would someone else feel if that was happening to them? And you might be able to, at least logically, come up with an answer. And if you can't, that's completely fine. And that's maybe where you need to start, is quite literally look up emotions and see what people can actually feel. So that's one of the ones I recommend at least. You've got stuff like meditation, which is all sorts of stuff, but the ones I like are sitting down and focusing on breathing, and I do a combination of thoughts where I sit down and I let thoughts come and I can analyse them, and I also do just sitting there and feeling my body, because that's direct with your emotions. So you sit there, you might feel, let's say I sit there and I can't feel anything, but I scan my body and then I start to feel aches, or I start to feel itches, and then you start to feel more and more and more, and that will help you, because you're then feeling things, even if it's not emotionally like based, you're gonna feel itches, and then those itches are gonna start to make you feel irritated because they keep coming and you keep itching and they won't go away. The thoughts meditation is essentially the same as the nature one, where you'll be walking and you get thoughts, you'll just be sitting here and you'll get thoughts and you can analyse them. When you're walking around in nature, you can just feel more because there's also less distractions. At least that's my experience. And then you also start to connect with nature, which brings out emotions as well. And then I simply just feel them. And then typically you'll feel them in your body, so you can scan your body as well if you don't get like initial emotional reactions like happiness or sadness or whatever it might be. The third way I found that really helps with emotions is actually removing as much suppressants as possible. And that's a hard process to do, and suppressants can quite literally, I'd say like 99% of stuff is probably like a suppressant, and some of that is like a bit problematic because some of it is linked to like our essential needs like eating. So for example, a lot of people are going to be addicted to food and they don't even realise it, especially junk food. So when you're feeling bad and you want to make yourself feel better, I'm sure you've heard this term, and it's like, oh, go and treat yourself to, I don't know, a burger or whatever. That is exactly the same as emotional suppression. Think about what's going on there. So you're feeling rubbish, you're feeling down, you want to make yourself feel better, so what you do is you go out, you buy something tasty and it makes you feel good in the moment, and it replaces those uncomfortable feelings. That's emotional suppression. That's actually damaging your mental health. And I gave the example of the bath. When you go and have a bath, what you're doing is you're feeling down or worn out again, and you're going there to replace those emotions. And anytime you're actively or unconsciously, you could be doing it, going to replace emotions, you are emotionally suppressing. Now, just to clarify, that's not the same as you're feeling tired and you want to relax. It's more of a case where you're intentionally or unintentionally avoiding negative emotions. You're avoiding something to deal with. Yeah, I really hope this helps, and bye bye.